Hi guys, and welcome back to MaxTM Crafting. Today I will accompany you on a very interesting journey. I went back to my true origins, to the primordial inspiration that more than 30 years ago made me fall in love with the fantasy world, miniatures and the beautiful art of creating terrains and dioramas for tabletop games. Starting from the very first adventures of Dungeons & Dragons, passing through HeroQuest and Warhammer Fantasy, I created my own Imaginarium, filling it with beautiful environments. All this led me to the great desire to create those same places with my own hands, to recreate environments and characters using techniques learned over the years. And so I never stopped having fun with this hobby. As you can see, I have already built the floor, creating anchor points for the four walls at the corners. Today, I want to analyze the pros and cons of a series of crafting techniques. Together, we will create a resin house that can be used in a 1/28 scale, therefore right for most tabletop games such as Warhammer Fantasy, Frostgrave, etc. Let's start by saying that my goal is to build a piece in resin. This is a very important aspect, which will completely influence the way we proceed. Having to create pieces to clone with silicone molds makes us completely reconsider the way to build. In practice, we will proceed to large section of the building. We will have to consider our house as an overlap of solid geometric shapes, of which we will have to build each individual face separately. This is not a tutorial, guys. It is once again my journey of deepening a technique, lived together with you, imagining that like me, you have never had experience with this type of construction. This little house we will build will have a floor at the base of 3 inches by 4, while for sure it will be a little more protruding on the first floor, as the tradition of half-timbered houses dictates. Once again, the XPS foam proves to be a very powerful crafting tool. We use it to shape our house, sculpting and gluing all the components. In this video we create a 2-level house which can be opened but without internal walls. For 2 reasons. The first reason is that, for gameplay purposes, it is better to remove the walls together with the ceiling to have full access to the playing area with your hands. The second reason is that here we will use a molding technique that provides single valve molds, which have only one side of cloning, leaving the back of the piece completely smooth. The techniques you see here are the summary of everything you can find in my channel. However, I have tried to create extremely dynamic and modular pieces so that they can also be cloned in future projects. The sore point of this video is that using the XPS foam to create the original piece, we must consider that despite all our effort, our commitment and pain to create a beautiful and as detailed as possible piece, we will see our creation destroyed during the process. That's right, save a rare percentage of times you use XPS foam without release oil and you will see that the silicone mold will stick to your piece and you will therefore be forced to detach it by making it into very small pieces. I never wanted to try using release oils in my XPS foam pieces, but it was never a problem for me. When I start to create a piece in resin, I think of the final result, which will practically live forever, unless something goes wrong in the molding process. Oh boy! The building will be about 2.5 inches high on the ground floor, while for the ceiling floor I will go by eye, trusting my aesthetic taste. Once the construction of all the faces of the ground floor was completed, I created the attic. This must surround the floor, which, as you can see, will protrude by about half an inch on the side and rear faces, while by about an inch in the front. To make these pieces as modular as possible, I chose to create a top chimney, because a fireplace on the rear wall, even if aesthetically better, would certainly give many problems in terms of molding. The fireplace will be the only piece with a 360-degree texture. This means that always using a single valve molding technique, we will have to create the fireplace and divide it in half to then reunite the two pieces of resin once created. One of the main reasons why I ventured into this project is to give a definitive turning point to my creation of roofs with shingles. Yeah, shingles. Here you see how I create a portion of a linear roof. I used a metal brush to create the wood grain in the first place. Then, using the Proxen, I cut regular slices of XPS foam, which I go to detail and glue on a thin rectangular piece of the right size for my little house. Someone will now be wondering why I'm preparing a perfectly flat piece, while my facade has a side slope typical of the fantasy genre. Do not be afraid. Using the elastic properties of the resin, we will be able to curve the roof as we please in the moment before the resin itself becomes completely rigid. At this point, I stopped. Half the roof will be more than enough for cloning. But if you are satisfied with your creation, you can complete the house and stop here. What will come next will be pure violence against your piece. I have tried different brands of silicone. They are very different depending on your country. In Italy, I definitely recommend Silgam MF from Hobbyland. They have different types of silicones, some of which are really very elastic and allow you to obtain extremely detailed and resistant molds. Let's start building the molding chamber. The best method is certainly to create ad hoc walls with Lego bricks. I was without Lego, so I arranged the chamber with pieces of XPS foam on smooth, transparent plastic lids. Attention, never use glass because the silicone will stick together forever. Plastic is the optimal solution. Also, check out my first video on molding and resin casting for a couple of tricks on this stage. Silicone has very different drying times, but know that the temperatures below 20 degrees Celsius tend to make the hardening process infinitely long. Important, for optimal results, as you can see, I have created extremely flat pieces, so as to be able to minimize the quantity of silicone to be used. I also concentrated several pieces in the same mold, always for the same reason. After drawing our pieces in silicone, we just have to wait and see the results. There are silicones with a separate catalyst, like the white one you see here, so the quantity between the two varies and is always proportional. Other silicones, on the other hand, must be mixed with the catalyst in equal parts, 1:1. These have much shorter curing times. I recommend them to slightly more expert users, because they have less working time and therefore less possibility of correcting any casting errors. Note, it is recommended to wash your silicone mold with soap and water to avoid that the resin models have imperfection caused by impurities. It is, however, very important that your mold is perfectly dry before pouring the resin, or the piece will have, let's say, problems. In this video, I will use yellow epoxy resin, perfect for miniatures, etc. These molds also go well with plaster or cloning compound. YouTube is full of guys who, in a much more professional way than me, will show you how to do it. For further information on how to use the resin, I always refer you to the other episodes of this playlist. In the end, the result is certainly very satisfying. I found very difficult to assemble the pieces. Not having a suitable glue on hand, I used a transparent hot glue to hold the pieces in place, then filling any small gaps with filler for plastic miniatures. Once assembled, I used a very diluted mix of black acrylic paint, Mod Podge and water to wash the resin and coat it with a layer that will be a good primer for our painting session. I first colored the main parts with the basic colors brown for the wood, grey for the stones, a dark green for the roof, leaving the walls dirty and untouched. I then started to give the respective shades, proceeding with white or yellow to create the right color tones. In the end, taking advantage of the dirty that I created on the walls during the whole painting process, I only accentuated the white with my airbrush in the central parts of the stucco. Flocking is very important to sell such a simple piece. Watered PVA glue, static grass and some colored flowers, bushes and it is done. This type of procedure is extremely expensive, guys, in terms of time and certainly of money. If you are not going to start a serial production of your creations, I advise you not to try all of this. It is certainly fine though, and in my opinion, it's always a great idea to keep these techniques in mind to clone small accessories for your dungeon. One thing is sure, deepening these techniques makes us better understand the value and cost of masterpieces such as those of tabletop worlds, for example. Those pieces have reached a level of detail that is mental, guys. I hope you found this journey in fantasy crafting interesting and entertaining. If so, hit the like button, subscribe and share this video with your friends. Till next time, happy crafting!